Is Amy Ferguson on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TT Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. It's Saturday morning, and we're live on Teachers Talk Radio. Oh, yeah. If you're listening live, let me know where you're listening in from and what you're having for your brunch this morning. Welcome to the show. Come on, fellas. Make it HB History's here. Tim's here. Seb's here. Good morning. Morning, Seb. It's August. It's a summer holidays. What are you eating? Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Saturday. It's Saturday, the 7th of August, and I'm back. Yes, I survived the hen party that I was on last weekend in Chester, which was great. I would I would highly recommend Chester Zoo. They've got a baby elephant there, so cute, and a little baby rhino. And this week, I've just been dipping into my emails, trying to keep work things ticking over. As I know what I'm like, I will dread opening my inbox and having 1,000 emails in September. So I've just been checking them every day because I just can't live with the panic. Anyway, how's your week been? Are you like me and you've been doing bits of work here and there every day or every so often? Or have you put your out of office on until September? And let me know what you've been up to. Pop a comment in the chat. Tell me where you're listening in from. You can call in anytime for a natter with me or tweet me at @AFergusonTeach1. It's Saturday brunch and I want to know what you are having for your brunch. So let me know and I might just read it out live on air. Lucky you. Coming up on today's show, we've got Jules Dolby, who will be chatting with me about an article that she wrote entitled PE Department Shouldn't Make Girls Feel Ashamed of Their Bodies. Hopefully we'll have Jules on after the news. Jules is head of Key Stage 3 and she is head of English at a special school in Dorset. She is also the co-founder of Women Ed and Women Ed Tech. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with her today. And I'll also be speculating about a reality TV / competition show starring teachers. If there was a reality TV show about teachers, what would the challenges be? What would the prize be? And what would the show be called? What do you think? Get in touch and let me know. My idea is that it's called Teach for Your Life and the title would all be in all caps, like someone would be shouting down the corridor. That would be my idea. Teach for Your Life. That's my idea. And the prize would be headship. The competitions would include getting to your break duty on time in a five lesson day, which I thought was quite funny. So let me know what you think. What would your ideas be for a teaching reality TV show that includes competitions? It's just fun to speculate. HB History said, what if we don't want headship? Oh, what do you mean? Doesn't everybody aspire to be a head teacher? I'm joking, of course. What if you don't want headship? Maybe you get CEO instead or Matt lead, or maybe just get loads of money and a car allowance. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I'll be reading out a little bit of an article later on in the show for article that I wrote for the Independent Education Today entitled Working Towards Greater Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. All that, and hopefully you'll be telling me what you've had for brunch, and Jules will be joining us after we've had the news today. So I'm going to cue up the news and then we'll get Jules into the show. So bear with me, Jules. I can see you calling him.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
According to a Guardian news report, universities continue to report record-breaking acceleration in A-level results in England and Wales this summer. With up to half of applicants seemingly being awarded 2 A grades, there is a suggestion that this will leave fewer places available for those who miss out on their first choice. University admissions officers are busy forecasting results, with one admissions officer reportedly suggesting that 45% of entries could be receiving A star and A grades. According to data last year, 38% of entries were awarded A or A star, in an increase on the 25% awarded in 2019. Students have not sat formal exams since 2019 due to the pandemic. Earlier this week, the government announced extra funding for medical and dental schools to cope with the higher numbers, and it has been suggested that some universities may offer incentives to students who could defer their entry until the following academic year. Many school and university leaders, however, have said that suggestions of grade inflation were unfair and unhelpful. Speaking to The Guardian, Paul Whiteman, General Secretary of the National Association of Head Teachers, said that the process of awarding grades had been carefully managed and that each grade must have evidence to support it. Part of the increased pressure on places comes from the increase in applicants, up by 4% from last year. Students, however, will not receive their official grades until next week. In a Schools Week exclusive, Tom Belger reports that Academy Trust CEOs can now serve as advisors to regional school commissioners, even if they do not have headship experience. Elections for these posts are set to begin in September. Previously, only trust leaders who had been head teachers within the past 5 years could fill the roles. Now, serving and recently retired heads can stand for election as well as CEOs. Full details of the criteria for candidates include leading an outstanding academy in the past 4 years, serving as a CEO for at least 3 years, and will include checks on the Trust's financial records. According to the DFE, successfully elected members will provide advice and challenge to regional school commissioners. All candidates will be elected by academy heads and executive head teachers. In a further Schools Week report, the government has assembled a panel of music grandees to help create a national plan for music. The NPME was supposed to be published last autumn but was delayed by the pandemic. It is now promised early next year, although no fixed date has been given. The panel will consist of music industry representatives as well as teachers. At the same time, the government has also released a report which summarised responses to a consultation on music education. The responses include only 8.2% of respondents agreeing that high-quality music education was available to all children, and the evidence from the consultation suggests that there is significant variability across schools and across the country. The Government Culture Minister said that she hoped the panel would help to ensure that young people from all backgrounds will have access to exceptional music education.
Thank you so much for the news. There's some really interesting things going on, isn't there? Yeah, I'm definitely all for high quality music education. It varies. I've worked in some brilliant performing arts departments where the music teachers have been fabulous, and we've had Perry teachers in and all sorts. But I've also worked in places where, it hasn't been as strong, and music, can bring so much joy, and to learn an instrument is really, really invaluable. So I'd like to see a really big improvement and consistent approach for music across the country. So we're back. What are we all having for brunch? I've only managed a piece of toast this morning, as you can probably tell. I don't know if you can actually tell, actually, if you can hear it in my voice, I'm a little bit delicate this morning. So yeah, I've only managed a piece of toast and like a sip of squash, so I'm feeling it this morning, guys. One of my fellow Teachers Talk radio hosts, Seb, has had smoked streaky bacon with melted brie on bagels. Oof, that sounds incredible, Seb. I'm coming round to your house for brunch. Tim has said he's not been as creative as Seb, but he's had the last 3 Weetabix in the house. Hope I can get some more, as they have been on strike. Shelves were empty in Tesco this week. Who's been on strike? Weetabix have been on strike. I didn't know that. I don't eat Weetabix though, but that's interesting to hear. Let me know what you're having, what you like having for your brunch. Pop a comment in the chat. Tell me where you're listening in from. Tell me what you're having for your lunch. You can call him at any time and natter or tweet me at @AFergusonTeacher1. It's Saturday brunch, and of course, I want to know what you are eating. Now, we've got Jules Dolby in the studio. I'm going to bring her in after a message from our sponsors.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TT Radio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TT Radio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence. How to deal with difficult colleagues. How to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment. And how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events.
And we're back. Later in the show, I'll be hearing about your ideas for a teacher challenge-based reality TV show and hearing a little bit more about what you've had for brunch. But coming up any minute, we should have Jules Dolby, who is here to chat about the article she wrote for Schools Week. I'm just going to bring her in. Bear with me 1 second. So Jules is here and she's live in the studio. Jules is head of Key Stage 3 and English at Dorset Special School. She's also the co-founder of Women Ed and Women Ed Tech. And you can check out her article on Schools Week now. Jules has written loads for TES, and I was scrolling through some of her articles last night. And they include how to manage the menopause as a teacher, schools must reach out to traveller families, and 12 revision tips for students with SEND. So she has written loads. And all really interesting stuff. So I'm really excited for her to be here today. Jules, I think I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited that you are here. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. And we are having to isolate because my daughter got COVID. So I'm feeling a little bit like I'm under house arrest. But apart from that, everything's fine. It's mainly I can do some work.
Yes, and how is she? Is she okay? Is she feeling well?
Funny enough, so she's 15, and the first she's had it twice. So none of us, there's 6 of us in the family, and none of us have had it except for her. And she's had it twice. The first time she was asymptomatic. This time she's really quite poorly. So yeah, she's been lying in bed for 3 days. Bless her.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope that she has a speedy recovery, and then hopefully that you guys, don't all then get it, and then you're all out in the free world as soon as possible. Hopefully,
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I bet, especially now it's the summer holidays as well. What
I know.
poor timing.
Yeah, we
That's what I mean.
we had a lovely couple of first weeks. We've done quite a lot of
Yeah.
camping and stuff. So it's actually, in some ways, it's quite nice. We can have, we're looking at on the positives, and
Yes,
there's a lot
of
of
course.
people much worse off than us. So
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I completely get that. So are you calling in from Dorset this morning?
I am, yes.
You are.
Yeah.
Oh,
From
lovely,
Dorset.
lovely Dorset.
Not very sunny today. It's pretty windy.
Yeah, it's a bit blowy here in
Yeah.
Oxfordshire this morning.
Is it?
It is, yes, it really is. I'll keep looking out the window thinking, come on, sun, but it's not going to happen. It's going to rain. It's forecast to rain today, unfortunately. So I'll be in the house all day.
Makes me feel a bit better being isolated when the
Well,
weather's
yeah.
bad.
Exactly. So because this is a Saturday brunch show, the first thing, I have to talk about food for about half an hour of my show, okay? Before we talk about teaching, we talk a lot about food.
I think a lot of teachers talk about food.
They do, don't they? It's like, what snacks have you got in your drawer and all of that kind of
What's the
stuff.
snacks? Yeah.
Exactly. So if you could be anywhere in the world right now eating brunch, where would you be and what would you be eating for brunch?
Well, do you know, I was thinking about this because at first I was thinking about a really hot island, but actually I'm a big fan. I lived in the Falkland Islands for 2 years.
Oh, yes.
In 2000 to 2002, and I'd love to go back and meet all my pals there who I stay in contact with through Facebook. But so it's such a long way to the Falkland Islands and really expensive. So if you could just zoom me out there for brunch, that would be great. And what I would have for brunch there is, I mean, they do, you know, you wouldn't believe it. They're sort of near Chile, and they have a Waitrose. So
oh, wow.
I'd probably have a Waitrose brunch sitting with my mate somewhere. It'd be quite windy and wintry over there. So we'll probably be inside with a nice hot brunch and coffee and really having a good catch up and maybe having a look at some penguins out the window.
Yes, of course. So actually, let's talk about that then. So you're in the Falklands. Are you a military family? Because
no, it was my husband got a job as a teacher, actually, funnily enough. He was an English teacher, and he got a job as the second. There were only 2 English teachers in their secondary school, and he got the job as the second. The first English teacher was a local Falkland Islander. So, and it was a big decision about whether we've been together about 5 years, and it was a big decision about whether I went with him because I'd just been promoted in my school. I worked in a large comprehensive in Dorset, and I was deputy head of sixth form. So when he got the job, I was like, I'm not going with you. I'm really happy. And then we had quite a lot of discussions. And in the end, I decided to go with him. So I gave up my kind of job and went to the Falklands.
Wow.
And then thought, what the hell was I doing? Because I didn't know what to do once I was out there. So I had
what did you do?
Well, I ended up, funnily enough, being a newsreader on the radio.
Oh,
so, yeah. So I was. I spent 2 years there. I was a journalist, really. So I would cover court cases, visiting dignitaries, local news, and I would sort of whiz up to the station on my bike early in the morning, write the news, and then read it in the morning. And then the rest of the day, I'd be out in my little Jeep, Suzuki Jeep, covering all sorts of stories about penguins and reindeer coming over from St. Georgia. It was a very exciting job, actually. I had great fun for 2 years. Yeah, it was good.
Fabulous. So for our listeners who don't know you, I'm sure lots of people do, and I know you from Twitter and from all the brilliant stuff that you do, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, what you teach and what you're interested in education?
So I'm now, I work at the special school in Dorset now, but I've been there 2 years. It's the first time I've worked in special school. I have usually worked for a number of years in mainstream SEN.
Yeah.
So I'm a big inclusion fan, but I kind of feel slightly sadly, I was a bit broken by the mainstream system and ended up in special schools, which I've absolutely loved and wondered why I hadn't gone into it earlier. And I've decided special schools are the new mainstream schools.
Oh, okay.
The majority of children should be in special schools, actually.
Yeah.
And then we should just have a few in mainstream schools where it's becoming much more rigorous and
Yes.
many children are not thriving. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's me. So I'm an assistant head and head of English. It's a special school from early years to post 16.
Yes.
We have two sites, a college site and a school site. So I'm the assistant head on the school site, and then I have a colleague who's the assistant head on the college site. And I teach English and do lots of drama and get theatre companies in and plan trips and do assemblies, and it's all very it's great fun. Yeah, I absolutely love it there.
Yeah, do you know what? We've got actually quite a lot of parallels between us. I'm a drama teacher.
Oh, are you?
I'm a deputy head in an independent special school, and also I've literally just moved from mainstream so last September into SEN, and my school, they take children from the age of 8 up until 18. So lots of parallels between us.
Really
Goodness
similar.
me.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but going from mainstream, which again I loved, but going from mainstream to special school, it just feels that rather than fitting a triangle into a square, that everybody can fit in the entrance, really, as a sort of metaphor.
Yes.
You know, that you're not constantly trying to shave off the edges to get people in the entrance, and that's what I love about special schools.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, I work at a very, very small school, so we're able to create that bespoke curriculum, the provision, the vocational stuff that's literally child specific. So each child has a completely different timetable. They might be in the same classes for some things, but some of them are off site for 2 days doing mechanics somewhere. We've got horse riding, we've got swimming, we've also got a broad and balanced curriculum as well. So we're able to do it because the school is so small. In mainstream, the numbers are huge, and they just can't do it. So how do you what drew you to working in special? Was there anything in particular that you thought, actually, I'm going to go and give it a go?
Yeah, it was partly circumstance. So I left. I was head of a speech and language base in a big mainstream school in Dorset, and I left that job to go work in a charity. And I worked because literacy is my specialism. So I worked for a literacy charity for a while, and that didn't go too well. I had a great 2 years, and then it all fell apart a little bit. And then when I came back, I was a freelance, and I was doing quite well with freelance, but I started to feel I was becoming quite inauthentic, if you like. Because I think it's fine not to be a teacher and to be a consultant or an advisory teacher, but for me, I felt that most of my stories were coming from teaching. So I started doing some supply teaching, and it was actually my old boss who I contacted first and said, I was looking for some supply teaching, and she contacted all her contacts, and then I ended up doing supply teaching in a special school for 6 weeks, which I got the bug really from there. And then actually her school then were looking for a temporary English teacher, so I started it was quite funny really. I always call it the reluctant leader journey I had, because I started as a supply teacher. I really enjoyed it because I could carry on doing my freelance work, and then every day I wasn't freelancing, I would be in the school, so it gave me plenty of money, and everything was fine. And then they said to me, would I become head of English, and would I lead English in the school? And I was like, oh, I'm not really sure. So in the end they persuaded me, and I took that role. And then the head of Key Stage 3 role came up, and again I was thinking, I should really go for it, but I'm really quite like being in my classroom and enjoy myself. But I did go for it, and now I'm assistant head there. So sort of within 2 years, I suppose, I went from supply teacher to assistant head there. But that was that was a pleasure, because it is a great job. But they do let me do a little bit of freelance as well, so I still do some freelance work with Harris, doing dyslexia sessions, and I do webinars for Clicker and things. So I do a little bit of extra work, and I write. I like writing.
Yes,
so,
yes.
So that's,
you do.
that's
You
really
write a
who I
lot.
am. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I enjoy writing. They tend to, I'm a bit feast or famine though. It's like I only write when I feel like it.
Yeah.
So,
I think you have to be inspired though, don't you? You can't just pull it out of thin air. You can't.
No.
You have to be infused, inspired, engaged by something, and then that galvanizes you into working, writing loads and loads and loads. So you co-founded Women Ed and Women Ed Tech. So for people who have been hiding under a rock and don't know what Women Ed is, what the Women Ed movement is, tell us a little bit about it. I know about it, but how did it all start?
Well, it started, I think it's 6 years now, maybe even 6.5 years ago, and it was on Twitter, and we were all talking on Twitter, a lot of us. My contact really was Vivian Porrett, who is a great friend and colleague now with Women Ed. And there were a couple of blogs had been written by Jill Berry and Helena Marsh about kind of the glass, the glass ceiling and not being able to get there. And then the stats started to come in. But what was really interesting about it was lots of other women were coming in saying, yes, this has happened to me, or, I'm not confident enough to go for promotion. And then the research started coming in, about and the one that really stuck, and I think sticks with a lot of people, is that men generally on the research will go for a job that if they can tick one or two things on the job description after a couple of years of, so pretty much not, but not as experienced, whereas women will only apply for those jobs if they can do 9 or 10 of the job descriptions. So that really struck a chord with me and lots of other women, I think, and it started there. So Women Ed was really created from those discussions and from those blogs from Jill and Helena.
Yeah.
And it's gone from strength to strength, really. Now it's global, it's across the world. And we have lots of conferences around the world and in London. Our first time that we actually met all together in real life was in London for the first Women Ed conference, which was really fantastic. And it was lovely to meet everybody. And but we've remained friends. So some have sort of moved on and are obviously still champions of Women Ed, but aren't in the steering group. Some of us have stayed, and we've got new people in. And Women Ed Tech, which I kind of co-run with Bookie, that was really, it was a slightly separate issue with regards to how few women there are. Well, actually, there are a lot of women in tech, in ed tech, but not that they either don't identify as techie for various reasons, or they're not in certain jobs like sort of the IT department or the kind of the technology companies were very low on women. So we decided to have a Women Ed Tech as a particular network for those that want to encourage those to either find roles within tech that they can be part of or not. So that was really Women Ed Tech. So both, but I suppose our motto, if you like, is 10% braver, which you will have heard. But also it's not just about women being brave, it's changing the system. So we very much appreciate when men join Women Ed because they're often the recruiters. I mean, I don't know if you've recently seen the chief executive salaries of the top 15 academy trusts, but there's only one. Well, they're huge. So they start with 500,000, I think, for one. So they're taking in big salaries.
Wow.
But there's only one woman in the top 15 salary holders. So they're the ones that are. So we need those men. I would say we need those men to not pay themselves as much, but that's by the by. But we definitely need those men to recruit, to recruit and encourage women and be proactive in getting them there, and not having these sort of very masculine and testosterone filled interviews and adverts, because often it's the adverts and the interview processes that put women off because sometimes, we're all different, and
Yeah.
and I think for women of colour particularly, it's an even more toxic situation. And Samina Chowdhury writes a lot about the concrete ceiling rather than the glass ceiling, so it's even harder if you're from a minority group. So
Yeah.
we're fighting for social justice on the whole, and for women, but particularly to get women into leadership posts.
Yes.
That's where
Yeah.
we maybe differ from other groups.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with me. We've got a question in the chat from Jenny, who said that she has read The Authority Gap by Mary Ann Sieghart recently. Have you read that? And they would love to hear your thoughts on that if you have.
I haven't read that one. No,
Oh.
I have read quite a few. I have heard of that one, so I will look it up.
Check it out. Yeah.
I will check it out, because I'm always really interested listening to the different stories. One of them, it was when we with 10% Braver, our first book. We've got 2 books out now, 10% Braver and Being 10% Braver. So I do recommend people read those.
Yes.
But I did a chapter called, and if you have a look on the hashtag on Twitter for gendered cheese,
Yes.
I wrote a gendered cheese chapter, which is basically about stereotypes. And one of the stories that really interests me was with the Philharmonic Orchestra. I think in Australia, I can't remember now, but they were trying to get a more equal and inclusive orchestra. So what they did, they put a curtain behind so all they could do was listen to the music. And what they found, it did improve slightly, but what they found, there was still more men than women winning these auditions. And they later realised it was because of the heels. So when they were walking onto the stage, you could hear heels. So there was this kind of subliminal message that these were women.
Yeah.
So what they did, they then made everybody come in socks. So behind a curtain in socks to play, and then they found that it was a much more equal orchestra, that more women were. So that just shows you that, and these people wanted really women to succeed. That's why they put the curtain there. But it was still having an impact on people's bias, which I think is really interesting. And
really interesting.
And I think for education, that's very interesting with regards to interviewing, where men often will get the post over women. But not just that, I think for women speakers, I think sometimes men seem to be allowed or get more praise and get more welcoming comments from the audience than women do sometimes. And I think that's all of us. I think we all have this sort of bias, that there's a certain type of person when they're speaking that we all like. And so that's very interesting, isn't it? So I'm quite interested in all that sort of bias that we all have.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel that women, I feel like we're pitted against each other.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, or compared, so and so's not doing as good a job as so and so, but they might be in 2 completely different roles and they're not comparative, but yet there's still comparisons made between the 2. But then you're kind of, it feels, and a lot of the time, this might be like me completely talking out of turn, it feels like it's encouraged by other women as well to that kind, and that I find that very strange. I don't get, I feel like I don't get involved in that, but
I think it's very interesting. There's 2 bits to that, I think, because often with women ed, we often get, actually the worst bosses they've had were women, not men, and that's a personal experience. And Kezia always says it's not about the genitals. Good leaders aren't genitals. So of course you can still have poor leaders that are women. But what I would say, my counterattack to that, I suppose, would be that when you look at how women are depicted compared to men, they're often things like ball breakers, or and there are no terms for men in the same way. So if you get a bad male leader, they're just a bad male leader. But if you get a perceived bad female leader, then they're called aggressive, ball breakers, all those terms. And there are no terms for men like that. So I suppose my counterattack is, we still need to question as women, the sisterhood. So I will always try and, with women, even if I'm disagreeing with them, I will always try to be kind. I'm not sure if I always am. But also the stakes are very high. So this has happened to me on Twitter a couple of times. So I have been critical and probably sometimes unprofessional in years gone by with other women. And people will often say to me, God, you're in Women Ed. How can you be like that? And I'm like, well, I'm still allowed to disagree with women,
Yeah.
but I think in a respectful way. And I always try to be respectful, and it doesn't always happen. But I think it is okay to still disagree with women if you're a feminist,
Yeah.
But that's part of the problem, because men don't get that. You don't get men on Twitter going, oh, well, how dare you speak to him like that, what happens to your male allegiance, or your brotherhood or whatever. So I think it's very complex, and also there's a perceived smaller space for women, and I think so maybe we're all competing in what we think of as a smaller space, and so what we need to do is actually make that space bigger, so we can of women of all different ideologies and philosophies can still succeed. And that's not to say I'm going to agree with them, but good on them. So Amanda Spielman in Ofsted, for instance, I disagree with 90% of everything she says, but I completely encourage and congratulate her for being a woman leader in Ofsted. So it's, I suppose it's that Margaret Thatcher theory, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
So there are times when you still need to stand up to other women if you disagree with them, but it's that in itself, I think, could be a little bit toxic when people start saying, do you know what I mean? It's a difficult one, because again, am I perceiving that woman more harshly than I would a man for being critical? Am I saying that they're aggressive when actually they're just having an opinion? So they're the things I challenge myself with all the time.
It's a constant reflecting, isn't it? And especially when I think if I don't agree with what somebody has said, I try and before I start to challenge what they're saying, I'm thinking I'm unpicking it, because sometimes it comes down to the fact you might disagree with them, but it could be, actually, I just don't like that person very much, as regardless of who they are, where they are, whatever.
Okay,
and that's okay as well. Definitely. But it's about, there's a fine line, isn't there, between support, challenge with support, and then there's a clear difference, and then just being an outright horrible, nasty person. I think disagree, but challenge and support that kind of disagreement kind of thing, and come to some kind of common ground, because it is there somewhere.
And it's okay to say I'm sorry as well, to reflect and then apologise. I think it's quite interesting what's happening on Twitter at the moment with a book by Clancy, is it? And there's been some quite stereotypical race tropes, I think, through the book.
Right.
And I'm just I haven't read the book, and I've read it, and I haven't jumped in, but I have been really interested in responses, to people, and it is, for me, it's educating yourself, isn't it? So to know, so for instance, the stereotypical black woman who's aggressive and loud is something, that should, if you're reading the literature about it, that should raise alarm bells if you see a stereotype like that, or those sorts of things. And I think that's my responsibility as a white woman, to ensure that I'm supporting the sisterhood
of course,
all the time, and being aware of things that don't necessarily affect me and I don't even notice through my white lens, that I need to see, and that's the same with men, seeing how women are treated. We've all got to be very aware, I think, of stereotypes and language and bias and prejudice.
Definitely, because it's stereotype threats. For me, I've found, and he's so limiting. When I've been in a meeting, I've thought I don't want. Sometimes I can't challenge. I can't. Sometimes I've felt like I can't stick up for myself. Sometimes not for myself, or raise my voice, because I'm worried that people are going to think that I'm angry and that I'm threatening because I'm from an ethnic minority, because I'm mixed race. It's so scary. It stops you from talking, and I I thought that I was stronger than that, but
Yeah.
it took, you know, several conversations that I had with my friends and colleagues to actually realise that's the reason why I'm not saying anything, because I'm
Yeah.
worried that people perceive me as that, you know, I want to fight them outside.
Yeah.
I really,
Yeah.
it's funny
And
that you don't
that's
really understand that those things are happening inside your
no,
own head.
there's kind of stuff, and I think
Interesting.
that's for women, and like you say, particularly for women from an ethnic minority, and that's where I think we need to. So if I were around that table with you,
Mm,
then it would be my responsibility, I think, to bring you in, to
mm,
to elevate your voice. What do you
yeah,
think, Amy? Or or if someone's talked over you, to say, well, hold on a minute, let's listen to what Amy's got to say first. That
yeah.
sort of thing. And I think we all need to be doing that all of the time, for women, and particularly for women of colour.
Yeah, totally. So I got you on the show to talk about the article that you wrote for Schools Week that's called PE Department Shouldn't Make Girls Feel Ashamed of Their Bodies. And there are a few references about, about the Olympics. Were you thinking about this topic long before the Olympics? Or
I've been thinking about it a couple of weeks before, not a long time, but it was slowly starting to creep in. I have 3 daughters in school, and they're
yeah,
all becoming, the youngest is 12 and the oldest is 15. So, and I was just starting to get some quite, I think, concerning messages from schools. So, for instance, there was a letter about the PE kit, because during COVID they've worn PE kit through the day, and
yeah,
one of the letters from the head sort of said, oh, and girls. So it said, oh, it talked about the PE kit, and then there was a
mm,
special line for girls which said, girls need to ensure that they keep their dignity. And I thought,
dignity.
yeah, their dignity, and I thought then, and modesty. I think the 2 words were dignity and modesty in this letter. And I remember thinking then, oh, that doesn't sit right with me.
Mm,
Why, one, are you particularly calling girls out on that and not boys?
mm,
And 2, that's actually quite sexualizing, our girls
mm,
in school. So that was the first moment. And then there was another time when she had lycra shorts on, and she was told they were
mm.
too figure hugging, which again
What?
didn't sit right with me. So,
No.
I literally Googled, if you can try and do this if anyone's listening, I Googled non-figure hugging lycra shorts.
Impossible.
Yeah, which there are none, obviously.
They
So
don't exist.
then I found a pair of shorts from Gymshark, so they weren't cheap, which were
Yeah,
like running shorts. They were just black plain with a little
yeah.
GS on the corner of running shorts,
Mm,
and because there was no guidelines about what to buy, just not figure hugging or something. Anyway, so
right.
she went to school in those for PE, looked looked just like, I thought, one of the marathon runners, that you see in the London
Mm,
Marathon, the women, and she was sent home because they were too short.
what?
And so she lost a whole day of education, which didn't sit right with me
Because
at
of
all,
her shorts.
because their shorts were too short. So
Oh
then the
my
message
God.
came back, and I sort of wrote, and I just said, I don't understand. So she can't wear lycra, but she can't wear shorts. What can she wear? And
Yeah.
it turns out that the shorts had to be baggy and above the knee, which are what male footballers wear.
Like football shorts, yeah.
Yeah, football shorts. And I kind of thought, all her role models, because she's she's into netball, hockey, running, or
Mm,
all her role models in the Olympics are not wearing, other than footballers, which she's not into
mm,
football. Fine if she were, are wearing the type of clothing that is banned in her school. So,
mm.
and I was kind of thinking, there was so many things there. One, it was very sexualizing because all the language was around
Yeah.
being modest, dignity, blah blah blah. But also that what they're seeing in the Olympics, they're seeing these incredible women athletes that are strong,
Mm,
athletic. They're not sexualized at all. You've seen the last gold medal we got with the 4 women runners, I think it was,
yeah.
in the relay. They just looked incredible. And they
Yeah.
had, lycra shorts and a vest top. And it did not look sexual in any way. And I would never
No.
want it to. And I just thought, actually, she's being told at school that that's sexualizing, that is wrong.
Mm,
It's also just the messages were not coming through, and they're not with my 12-year-olds at the moment, but I think they will when they turn 13. So the messages are starting to come through school when they hit puberty. So when they start having breasts and pert bottoms and all that sort of thing, and looking like women, so suddenly school rules change when girls hit puberty. So that for me is saying you need to hide your breasts. You're not allowed to show your bottoms. You're distracting. That was another term. It didn't happen to my daughters, but I got a message from another mum that said she was told her daughter was distracting by wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
Distracting who?
Well, exactly.
From what?
Exactly.
Goodness,
so I think what I'm trying to say in that article, I think, is, let's not, any rules that you set need to be really well thought through, that are ungendered, that are not punishing girls for having bodies, that are natural puberty bodies, and and to look to our Olympic athletes and see what they're wearing. Why is that the problem? In that article, though, I also talked about the contradiction. So you have this, but then you've this policing of women's clothes, either so they've got to cover their bodies or they've got to show their bodies. So then you had the beach handball team who were fined because they refused to wear bikini bottoms, whereas their male counterparts were allowed to wear shorts. And Pink, the rock star singer Pink, actually paid the fines for them, or certainly volunteered to pay their fines, because it was so unfair that they were fined by the Olympic Committee for that. And you've got gymnasts who are measured with their leotards through inches from the buttocks, from where the leotard finishes to the buttocks, and they're not allowed to go over something like 2 centimetres. So in both ways, women are policed. In the way that men are not often, and generally boys. I've never heard a boy in school told that his shorts are too short and to protect his modesty. So we've got to ungender this stuff. Have a rule if you want to, but is it a fair rule? It was also there was another incident with a Black woman swimmer who had a cap, and they were told she couldn't wear this swimming hat because it was not a natural shape. And of course, if those rules had been created by women with afro hair, then they absolutely would not have made that rule. So again, it suggests to me that the type of people making these rules are not necessarily teenage girls, are not Black women with afro hair. So you have to have a diverse group of decision makers. And so that's the main point. I think at the end, it was my message to senior leaders that, are your rules thought through? Are they sexist? Are they punishing girls for having bodies in puberty? And please have a diverse group on your committee that are making those rules.
So my question then would be, so if you haven't got a diverse group of senior leaders and governors, where do you seek advice from? What do you do?
You go to your community. So, and again, I think we're seeing these problems in London particularly, aren't we? But in elsewhere where there's things like, you mustn't have a colourful hijab, or your hair's too high, or things. And these are clearly issues that, if you were asking the families, what do they think? These are our rules. Are these fair? You've got to audit your rules and get the community on board, bring them in. And if they're not governors, because that's another issue, then have a parent group. Have a parent group, and ask those questions in that way. So when I at the speech and language base at the comprehensive school, we had a parent group of children with SEND, so because rules often affect children with SEND far more than they do neurotypical children. So it's the same, isn't it? So get some groups. So I would come to that school if they called me and said, okay, you clearly have a problem with our PE kit, can you come in and talk to us, and this is what we want, and this is what you're saying, where's the middle ground here? And I'd sort of say, okay, well, you're going to have to suggest some shorts that are appropriate, but you're not to use sexualized language, and you're going to have to say where you buy those shorts from, if you're not allowed to buy Gymshark shorts, which are designed for running, then
Yeah.
what type of shorts are they allowed to wear? So it has to be, I think, that's where I would say, if your governors are not diverse, go to your community.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's nothing wrong with phoning. The head could phone people, pick different groups of kids or whatever and call their parents and say, look, what we need some help with this. What do you think? Can you imagine how valued the parents would feel if they were actually asked and phoned out of nowhere? You might assume that your child was being trouble or something, but then once you got over the initial shock from the head teacher, you might be actually quite open to providing some feedback, and then think about how valued you'd feel as a parent if you had that phone call.
And I think as well, you would then really implement those rules, knowing that they've been created with a diverse group of decision makers. So then when my daughter comes in and says, I say, oh no, I know you can't wear those. We've discussed this, but this is these are the ones that you can wear. But in a much more sort of ungendered way, I think.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So how can schools avoid the uniform policing? You've talked a little bit about the language around this, like not sexualized language, but the kind of, they shouldn't be tight, and you don't just target one group of like, you wouldn't just target the girls over the boys, that kind of, maybe even a unisex. I'm not sure. But what do you think? How can schools avoid it, uniform policing?
I think it's fine. I'm quite different to most teachers. I don't believe in uniform, but I accept that we have uniform in this country, so we need to abide by it. But I think we really need to recognise, one, how expensive uniform is.
Yes.
2, how it's often sexualising girls and not boys. 3, probably even for transgender children, it's very mixed messages for them. So I think part of being an inclusive school is to ensure that your rules are lack as much prejudice, any prejudice really, and the only way you can do that is by having representations from every type of child you have in your school. So if you've got transgender children, then you need to bring them in. Your pupil voice is incredibly important.
Yes.
And I think often this idea that, you're going to open the floodgates and everyone's going to turn up in a boob tube, and are unfounded. I think most people, when you're involved in the decision making, then you actually feel very part of it and you feel very proud of it. So and people are much more likely then to abide by it. So I think it is getting pupil voice, getting your communities involved, getting your governors involved, but auditing everything. Is this sexist? Is this prejudice? Does this do these rules have an issue for certain groups like children with SEND? So it's even down to, this is policing uniform, but there are children. So I had one parent, she used to pay a fortune to have a different lining fitted into her son's blazer because of his sensory issues, because he had autism, and so there are ways around that, obviously, and therefore he could then wear it. But just even a recognition, I mean, the head wouldn't even have known that had happened. They've just done that very quietly. So even a recognition of how difficult that is. Shirt collars for children with sensory issues. Shirt collars are really painful around the necks. That can really affect them. Some children really like tight clothes, again, if they have autism. So you'll often find they'll wear like really tight leggings or pants underneath their trousers. And again, nobody knows about that stuff, which is fine. So it's trying to get people to it's trying to include everybody in those decisions. But going back to women particularly, and teenage girls who are hitting puberty, being aware of the real shame that girls can feel, and embarrassment of their bodies, and also linking the PE departments, particularly linking that girls stop doing PE around 13, so they drop their sports at 13, which is exactly when puberty hits. So the last thing we want to be doing is making girls feel embarrassed of their bodies by saying they need to hide them. They shouldn't be ashamed of their bodies in any way. And
No,
so
100%.
if there's some uniform rules that are shaming girls and not shaming boys, and actually are incredibly confusing for those children that are transitioning
Yeah.
or have haven't yet identified, then those are the things we need to be thinking about all the time.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. We're going to take a little bit of a left turn here, but you're doing the leadership masters, aren't you?
Oh,
We,
do you
yeah.
know, sitting next to me, this is my isolation. I've got to be really careful not to have 10 days of procrastination, because sitting next to me is this bright yellow folder that says Module 4, and I have
Oh
an
gosh.
essay. I have an essay to write by a certain date. I can't remember what it is. The 20th, I think.
Well, that's not good if you can't even remember the date.
Oh no! Well,
not doing very well.
That's part of my. I can't do time and date, so so it's part of my own send. But also, we're going on holiday if we can, if we're out of isolation by the 14th. So we're going to Cornwall camping. So I've got to get it done before I go camping, because there's no way I can do it in a tent.
So well, no, definitely not. We've got the same tutor, Rachel. Rachel is your tutor and is my tutor as well, because I've just started, and I wanted to. Yeah, just started it in July. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm just how have you managed doing everything that you do? A lot, so you've got all your kind of freelance side hustle bits and bobs that you do. You've also got a full-time job. You've got a family of 6. And you're doing the leadership masters. How do you do it? Tell me, what's your tricks? Are you a magician?
I think, well, listening, when you say that, I think, oh God, yeah, I do a lot. But, in my head, in my very self-critical head, I think, oh, I'm really disorganized. I never get anything done. I procrastinate. I leave everything to the last minute. I do my job really badly, and I'm a really bad parent. That's that whole kind of thing. You kind of feel this in your head. But actually, when you hear what you're saying, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I do it okay. So how I would say I manage by just doing everything. I do things last minute, but that's partly me. I've learned, being a bit older now as well, that procrastination is not often procrastination. It is your body and mind resting. And it's the way your body tells you. So when I'm, I don't know, I never hoover, but I tend to hoover 12 hours before the deadline of my essay. So when I'm hoovering, or when I'm on Twitter, or watching Netflix box sets or Marvel films, that's actually my way of relaxing.
Yeah.
And also a lot of mind, I'm thinking a lot. So although I'm not sitting down at a desk writing or reading, I'm thinking. And that, I think, is how I do it. But recognizing those moments of procrastination is actually being something quite positive rather than negative, and not feeling guilty about it and just going with it does help. But I do each one of my essays so the deadline is on a day midnight, and I would say each one of my essays has not been in before 11:30.
Right. Okay. Oh goodness me!
So I do a lot last minute, and I stay up. I stay up and go to bed late and things like that to get it done.
So how did you manage the off-the-job training bit?
So, I'm quite lucky in my role, in the fact that, particularly through, I did most of my teaching was via camera. So, because I don't have my own tutor group in a special school, I would zoom in my English lessons, which made them a little bit shorter. Plus, I'm in the office a lot more than a teacher, because as a senior leader, and so I've managed to do it just through. I did a lot at the end of the school day up to 6 o'clock. So I do a lot of courses. So all the women ed stuff counts, all the webinars and conferences. A lot of the stuff, my own freelance stuff, I count because it's off the job. So I count that. I've done. We're concentrating on vocabulary next year. So I did a word aware course with Stephen Parsons, who's the speech and language therapist, and that was a train the trainer course. But that's off the job, really, because I can now train schools in that vocabulary training. So I've tried to make it as useful to the school as possible, but also useful to me for my off the job. So quite
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff I'm doing. So I'm doing I'm going to do a steps training, which
Okay.
is a steps is our therapeutic behaviour approach that we use in Dorset, and I'm going to become one of the trainers. But again, that's off the job really, because it's not my direct work.
Yeah, and
I'm
it's
just
new to you and all that.
it's yeah. So that kind of thing. So I think you can be. I'm very creative. I suppose that's how.
Yes.
What I lack in organisation and skills that other people I feel very envious of, I think I make up for creativity.
Yeah, I love that. That would be me. That would be
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
This
So
week
be
I've been
creative.
frantically I've been kind of thinking, what have I done that's off the job? And it's not until I actually sit down and go, actually, I had a SEN meeting,
Yeah.
and that was like kind of about how we're going to talk about visual timetables for the young people and preparing them for trips. So that was like one bit of training. Then like a bit of preparation for my show. That's bit of reading and research.
All your
things like that.
discussions and your show can all count for off the job, So because it's all CPD, isn't it? I think it's quite an interesting women ed thing as well, actually. That a lot of the stuff we do, we don't recognise as valuable, and so therefore we don't put it down as off the job. So it is absolutely analysing everything you do and seeing and how much, the extra reading you're doing, the articles, every time you press on a link on Twitter, all those things are all off the job. So it is just recognising everything. The biggest thing for me, and that's my organisational difficulties, is getting it down on the writing it down.
Yeah.
So I forget 100%. The date, or I did this, or what was the date, or how many hours, that sort of thing. So I try and keep everything in my calendar and then go back and fill it in from my calendar.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. So we're coming to the end of our chat today, Jules. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And what I wanted to ask you is, if people are interested, I'm sure that they will be, and if they don't follow you already, they need to go and follow you because you're doing loads of brilliant stuff. So where can people connect with you if they want to?
So I am on Twitter at Jules Dalby, so I'm an easy one to find. And I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook. So I use those three areas. But I'm also contactable through Women Ed. So I run on the email account on Women Ed. And I do urge everybody, to male and female, to sign up to the newsletter for Women Ed. It's very easy. If you go on to the womened.com website and just sign up to the newsletter, and then you get lots of information via that as well. So so do that. So I'm easily contactable, and I'm very I'm always very welcoming of people, particularly with SEND and inclusion, or issues around leadership for women. I get a lot of DMs and a lot of emails, and we all do a lot of sort of informal coaching and advice, or at least signposting you to somebody that can help. So never feel, again, it's a woman thing. They don't like to ask for help. Or they feel they're being a nuisance, but never feel you're being a nuisance. Always contact us.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been brilliant talking with you. I hope that we get to meet in real life and connect again in the future. That would be brilliant. Thank you so much, Jules. Take care.
That's good to talk to you, Amy. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Oh, let me just... Oh, she's still here. She might still be here. Bear with me, everybody. I'm broadcasting from my bed today. Jules was brilliant, wasn't she? I really, really enjoyed that conversation. It is really, really great to have lots of different people on the show, and to have somebody so experienced as Jules and a champion of women. Absolutely incredible. So thank her so much for coming on the show today. Goodness me, we are back. So earlier in the week, I asked on Twitter, if there was a reality TV show about teachers, what would the challenges be? What would the prize be? And what would it be called? Now, some of the responses that I got from about this tweet were absolutely hilarious. So as I said earlier in the show, mine would be called Teach for Your Life, all caps, as if it's been shouted down a corridor. A challenge would be get into your break duty on time during a 5-lesson day, and prize would be headship. Now, HB History, who was here earlier, said, what if you don't want headship? Very good point. I like the salary, I think, but maybe not the responsibility, which I completely agreed with. Yes, definitely. So some of the responses that I had were, so let me read this one out. Minnie Duperson on Twitter said the challenge would be to please all parents for one academic year all the time. Prize would be cash, total score budget, plus what all parents earn in one fat tax-free check. I love that one. Gurav on Twitter has said a prize would be a packet of highlighters and glue sticks. Excellent. Willpower has said to me, Viva Willpower, that he remembers there was one where they took 3 celebrities and had them try teaching in primary for a few weeks. They all found it really, really hard and were exhausted by the end of it. Yeah, there was one. I seem to think Jerry Halliwell was on it, but I might be wrong. I think there was a teacher's reality TV show with celebrities, but if anyone can remember what that was called, do let me know. Hindsight magazine has said get bottom set year 9 back and settled after a fire alarm, period 4 on a Friday. They have 20 minutes to finish their end of unit assessment in silence. The prize is not having to mark them all over the weekend. It would be called Some of You Will Find Yourself Back Here at 3 p.m. I love that one. Damien Rafferty has said every week you could write and teach a totally new plan based on an arbitrary change to the curriculum. The prize would be none of your children going to bed hungry, and the show would be called Detention. Oh, I like that one. Joanna Cowley says, remember teachers, young dysfunctional teachers? Let's be honest, some very true moments when we all got by the seat of our pants. Oh yes. Moo Moo, what's this person's called? Moo Moo Moss Chops on Twitter. That's M Wit has said, keep a straight face task. Try not to laugh style game, but instead of not laughing at jokes, try not to raise eyebrows, frown, sarcastic face when talking to parents making excuses for a poorly behaved child, governors asking why you've underperformed, and colleagues showing off. Like that one. Zoe Laura Dina has said, I'd love it to be called the staff room. There should definitely be a photocopy laminating time challenge. Who can eat their lunch the quickest? The race across the playground whilst holding a cup of tea and not spilling it. I love that one. And the prize would be having a scribe to write your reports. What a prize that would be if someone else could write your reports for you. Excellent. Amanda Culliper said a challenge, not having a naked 4-year-old while changing for PE for the first session. Nathan has said that isn't a mission difficult, it's mission impossible. So funny. Challenges from Raj. Raj has said breaking up parent fights on the playground, picking up the cans of beer bottles and syringes close to the school premises. Oh, goodness me, that's horrible. Mary Moo Moo, no, Mary Moo, goodness me, I can't read, sorry, has said that her show would be called I'm a teacher, get me a new career. The challenge is to get through the day without having to deal with bodily fluids of any kind, get on top of your marking, leave by 5 and avoid all unnecessary SLT buffoonery. Prize would be a full uninterrupted day of PPA. That sounds absolutely incredible. Very, very good ideas. I'm loving these. They're making me laugh so much. Christopher Vowles, who's one of our Teacher Talk Radio hosts, has said, surely this would be a variant of the Crystal Maze format. 4 types of challenge: mental, so crisis fixing; mystery, no notice cover; physical, extracurricular sport; skill, demonstrating some obsolete but effective skill like using a sextant. I don't know what that is. When you finally get to the dome, both teams get to split the value of gold tokens for funding a project in both schools. What would be your 4 zones? Incredible. That sounds a very, very interesting and tough Crystal Maze style teaching challenges there. Mr. Gleason has said, who can get to the photocopier first before maths exam papers start printing? And Teacher by Trade has said, called I've had less sleep than you. You get points for delivering staff meetings, playground duties and marking. Person who is the most ill wins. Those are absolutely brilliant. Seb Ventura has said that the teacher's toilet challenge, get through a 5-period day with duties and never go to the loo. Not strictly a game, actually a challenge I've had to do. God, goodness me, we've got a hard life, haven't we, us teachers? Some really great ideas there. So what I think is we should get in touch with Channel 4 and get a show on the road, and I'll be the presenter, of course. I'll be back with some more top quality brunch content after a word from our sponsors. Oh, well, I would. if
Every
it would
teacher
play.
loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
And we're back. So continuing with the reality TV theme, Harriet Orton has said, Gove Island, Michael Gove has to survive on a desert island by defending his educational reforms to a bunch of angry teachers. If he manages to convince any of them that they were beneficial, they help him get food, shelter, etc. See how that goes. That's a funny one. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Tom Hopkins Burke, who's HB History's on after me. Go a whole week without coffee. The prize is a lifetime supply of the stuff. Oh, can you imagine? We have to get through a whole teaching week without coffee. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't be able to do it. Another one says, in an infant school, managing sick, probably projectile poo, runny or otherwise, and wee on the carpet or in a puddle all at the same time, without anyone treading or sitting in it, or the teacher throwing up. And don't forget managing the other 29 children. That's Teacher Tattle on Twitter. Oh gosh, that sounds in an infant school. Goodness me. No. Chrissy Fadipe has said, data drop. If you don't meet the students' targets, you are up for eviction. Students, SLT, and governors doing a running commentary. 8:28. French teacher Madame Pascal is in the diary room after finding out her student residuals were lower than anticipated. Goodness me, you lot are mad. I love hearing all these crazy ideas for a reality TV show. No, my last one that I'm going to read out is from Tim Chem Commando. He said, time to clear that jammed photocopier. And then he's put a gif of RuPaul that says, for your life. Absolutely incredible. Some really great ideas. I reckon we get this show up and running. Let's get in touch with Channel 4 or whatever channel, Netflix, whoever. I'll take my show anywhere. Oh, because it's going to be my show. So the very last thing that I wanted to chat with you about today is an article that I wrote for Independent Education, which was published earlier this week. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a snapshot about the article and ask you to go and read the whole thing, because I something that I'm really passionate about, and hopefully you will find it useful in your day-to-day work. So the article is entitled Working Towards Greater Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. And I was asked to comment on the equality, diversity and inclusion among school staff report carried out by Ajurio, where 60,000 members of school staff were involved in the survey. So I'm just trying to find a little snapshot from the article that I can share with you. So I start by saying that when I read the report and the results of the extensive survey, it did not come as a surprise. I've been living at the intersection of gender, sexual orientation, and ethnicity my whole life, and I've grown used to an environment where I look around and cannot see another person like me. I'm a deputy head teacher in an independent special school in Oxfordshire, and talking to peers in other schools, their experience mirrors mine. Schools are not yet places where everyone feels like they are treated equally and where we can see the diversity of our children and of our country reflected in the school staff. Now, the report found that less than half, so that's 43%, of staff feel their workplace is diverse, and this drops to a quarter, 28%, when asked about their leadership. I've already mentioned that it's rare to see someone else who looks like me, but diversity is not just about what people look like, and there are many factors that make up who I am. I'd like you to go and have a read of the article that I wrote. It is in Independent, just bear with me, Independent Education Today. It's on their website and it's called Working Towards Greater Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. And if you haven't already, make sure that you go and check out Edurio's Equality, Diversity and Inclusion amongst school staff report. It's really interesting. The findings aren't surprising, I don't think, but very interesting. And they kind of give us some tips on how we can, think about diversity and inclusion in our schools and what we can do to improve it. So please do go and have a look. So that's how my article begins. I'd love it if you went to go and give it a read and let me know what you think. You can tweet me at @afergusonteach1, or you can get in touch next time I'm on, and we can have a natter about it. I'd love to hear from you all. Before I go today, I just wanted to remind you about the book that I'll be reviewing this month, which is Restorative Practice, Building Relationships, Improving Behaviour and Creating Strong Communities by Mark Finnis. It's part of the Independent Thinking On series of books. If you have read the book or you want to read the book, then come and chat to me about it. And I'll be reviewing that in a couple of weeks' time. So let me know if you want to come and chat to me about it. I'd love to hear from you. The last book that I reviewed was Andrea Brown's Lighting the Way, The Case for Ethical Leadership in Schools, which got a Fergie 5 out of 5 stars, which was really good. And at the moment I'm reading this Restorative Practice book. It's going to be really helpful to my practice in schools, definitely working in an SEMH school. And I think restorative practice is something that we need to get better at in our school, definitely. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But as for today, that is the end of the show. Thank you to my guest, the lovely Jules Dolby. Go and check her article out on Schools Week and all of the wonderful stuff that she's written for the TES. Make sure you sign up for the Women Ed newsletter on the Women Ed website. And thank you lot for listening, and thank you for staying live with me. Coming up next on Teachers Talk Radio, we have got the wonderful Tom Hopkins-Burke with his absolutely brilliant lunch show. He's so professional, so good at his job. I love listening to that one after my show. So I'll be there. Come and join me in the chat over on Podbean and listen live. Don't forget, here at Teachers Talk Radio, we're always keen to hear from new voices. So get in touch and we'll get you on the show. You can tell me what you're having for brunch, and make sure you stay tuned to Teachers Talk Radio all weekend. Have a wonderful summer week. Now, I won't be here for the next 2 Saturdays. I know I've got a life. Who knew? As I've got family visiting and then I'm away. So I will catch you. I'm going to say it again. This is my corny sign off. I've started saying it more and more. I will catch you on the flip side. Have a wonderful 2 weeks and I'll see you later.
Live from Oxford, this is the Saturday Brunch with Amy Ferguson on Teachers Talk Radio.
I will see you next week. Well, not next week, in 2 weeks' time. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.